Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to HR Week 2021. Again, if you just joined us, this is C-level day, a whole day devoted to C-level and the combination and the connections between HR, C-level together, really looking at those conversations to move forward, certainly. So we just finished off a great session, a really great session, the role of engagement in the context of strategic business mission. Roman gave us, from Gazprom Neft, gave us a great session there. And right at the end, just after he went, we had quite a few questions that came in. So those of you perhaps, again, you're curious, you'd like to know more as the session's going on, pop in the question before we get to the end of the session, and that gives me enough time to ask those questions to our speakers as well. Right, we move on now to our next session, which is jumping into the world of diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging. And the next person who's going to share her awakenings, her insights on the topic from both personal and professional perspective. And in fact, actually, the results have actually unexpectedly intertwined to really help her transform her personal leadership and guess what? Ultimately, really help steer her company along its diversity journey. So all of this is intertwined. Things that we experience personally outside of work, things that we experience in work, putting them together can actually help both parties as well. Right, I'm going to warmly welcome our next speaker right now to our virtual format here at HR Week, Chief People Officer at Worldwide Clinical Trials, Joy Clark. Joy.
Greetings.
Hello, Joy. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Wonderful. I am looking at what I can see. I can see you, I can hear you, all great. And I'm looking at your background. What an intriguing background you have. I'm sure there's lots of stories in all the objects that I see behind you.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right, I'm going to leave it up to you now. Towards the end, questions that we get from our listeners, our audience members, I'll ask you those at the end. But right now, in the meantime, I'm going to let you go. But before I do, where are you right now? We'd love to know.
I am in Durham, North Carolina in the US.
Fantastic. Great.
Yes.
Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind introduction. Greetings, everyone. I'm Joy Clark, the Chief People Officer for Worldwide Clinical Trials, and I am delighted to be with all of you today. I'm very aware that for most of you, it's after lunch, it's Friday, it's been a long and exciting week filled with a lot of screen time in a world filled with a lot of screen time. So, thank you for joining me in my home, from your home or from wherever you are. I'd like to get to the heart of this, but I also realize you're here for the business case. So, let me set it up for you. Worldwide is a contract research organization, or CRO. We ensure clinical trials are conducted safely and productively. We have 2,600 employees in over 50 countries and growing. We expect to hire about 1,000 more people next year. And uniquely, we are 71% female with an average age of 43. We're also top ranked in our industry for both customers and our employees, outperforming competitors for staff, for delivery, for services, for budget, and for customer loyalty. Can't have a business case without the financials. I know you'd like to know that, but we're a private company, so that's not going to happen. But our revenue and earnings growth are expected to be well above industry averages. And people are our most valuable asset. Everybody says it, right? For us, it's a fact. You see, we don't have a product. We sell our employees expertise and their experience. So without our employees, we have no company. Now, you could argue which came first, the culture or the results, but why? I believe if you can bill, you can belong. If we assume every position has value because we pay it a salary, then it's worthy of belonging. And with a population this unique, 71% female, this global, 54 countries, where do you begin? And what does diversity or belonging even mean? What does it look like? And how can you belong when you work in a remote location in a COVID world? There's a saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words because we see well beyond the image. Our minds complete the image by interpreting, by judging, by drawing conclusions based on our own personal history, and life experiences. So let's try something. Lean in and look at this girl. Look at her closely. And I would love for you to put in the chat, what do you see when you look at her? How might you describe her? What is she like? How smart? How strong? How weak? How privileged? How able is she? What's her life like? Is it hard? Is it easy? Now, how about this girl? Lean in close and look at her. How might you describe her? What is she like? How smart? How strong? How weak? How privileged? How able? What can she do? What can she not do? What is her life like? So I wonder, did your answers change? So why do this? Why have this conversation? Why look at this? In order to see ourselves, we have to look at the lens through which we see the world, our biases. And I'd like to share a skill set here, separating facts from stories. Facts are verifiable through direct means, right? Stories are judgments, conclusions, motives that we assign to make sense of the facts that we see. Now, in our roles as HR professionals, we gather facts all the time for employee investigations. We should be really, really good at this, right? And we need to look up, we need to look around because we can't see the whole view if we don't understand our own bias. And don't tell me I'm impartial, I have no bias. It's not true. We all do it, we all have it. Our brains interpret the world around us, and that's really valuable. And it's also unreliable. And this can be very hard to see. Sometimes it takes others to point it out. So, for example, I joined Worldwide in 2019 and went to Serbia as part of a listening tour. In one of our focus groups, I accidentally mentioned that I am a single mom. I was embarrassed. I had never revealed that at work before. It was private. And in all honesty, I was a little ashamed of it. I thought it suggested I was a bad leader or had an unsuccessful life or was a bad judge of character, etc. And much like these close-ups on the screen here, I really don't like showing that part of myself. It can be dangerous to be a single female executive, and I guarded any imperfections that I thought could be exploited. I'm tough, I'm resilient, I'm a good leader, I'm a good businesswoman in mostly a man's world, and I didn't need to show that because it's a weakness, right? Turns out I was wrong. One of many times that I'm wrong. And what I didn't know at the time was how many single parents there are in Serbia, quite a few. And I learned that while most single parent households are employed, 35% of them are at risk of poverty. And 80% of those families have a woman as the head of the household. No wonder my being a single mom got attention. And no wonder that over the course of the week, many women approached me and told me what an inspiration that was, what an inspiration I was by the very thing I was ashamed of. I was stunned. I didn't get it. They explained it to me a few times. But that gave them hope that they could have a successful career as single moms too. And it hadn't ever occurred to me that revealing this imperfection, this weakness, was a strength. And by looking at me through their lens and not mine, the worldwide team in Serbia helped me to see me in ways that I hadn't imagined. We all know that organizations with a strong sense of belonging can increase job performance by over 50%. And they see substantial decreases in turnover and sick days. Why? A couple of reasons. People want four things: they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be valued, and they want to be safe. And when they're not, they give less. And the same skills that people use in their lives to overcome hardship, they use on the job. They can't not. It's part of them. And if we make them hide it, we miss it. And until that point, Worldwide was missing a critical part of me because I was afraid to let people see me. Is it comfortable? Heck no. It feels really dangerous, much like showing these close ups of my face and my wrinkles and the bags under my eyes. It's fierce vulnerability. And it's me. And you see me whether I pick the lens or not. So imagine it's you on this screen. What are you afraid to show? What do you hide? What do you hold back? And how can you show your vulnerability? What might change if you did? I suggest everything. So see yourself. That's step one. Step two, see your company. As HR professionals, we solve problems. We are expected to make things work, to smooth out the rough edges and clear things out of the way for business. And we do that authentically, or we couldn't sleep at night. This can make it very hard to be objective and to see our companies as our employees do. It takes a lot of humility and courage to look at everything you've always done, the way you've always done it, and ask, did I build something biased? Did I build something good for business and bad for people? These are really tough questions. And even with the best of intentions, we can see what we want to see. So I suggest asking someone else to do it, or at least checking your work. And that's what we did at Worldwide. We hired an independent consultant to look at everything we do and everything we did: policies, procedures, turnover data, exit data, hiring data, pay data, you name it, we gave it to them. And we asked them, tell us what we don't know about our company. And then we waited and we waited and we waited, and our employees waited. And this was really hard because there was pent up demand for progress. So, I'm going to walk you through a framework here that you might consider in your organization. And I'll admit it looks a bit like an amusement park. So, buckle up and come along on the ride with me. We took a 3-point approach, and this is the framework that we used. Beginning up here in the blue with the facts. We got to get the facts. We need a baseline. That's the blue. While our consultant worked on that, we got to work on the groundwork, building the infrastructure we were lacking. That's the purple. And when that was in place, we got to the part that the employees really wanted, and that's the green. Now, we debated this approach because we wanted to balance action and authenticity and sustainability. We didn't want to start something we couldn't finish. And speed. We needed to go fast. So while the consultant analyzed, we built the purple. We built things like executive engagement. We needed a common language and understanding. Our management team is diverse, and executives can be really proud of how we got to be where we are. We each have our own story, it's part of our identity. And the idea that privilege could have played a role is insulting. And also, employees don't care about our egos. We get to do it anyway. That's leadership. For us, facts are powerful. We learned about history and systems that create inequalities, and that really humbled the team so that we could be more open and more curious. That openness fed a growth mindset, and that while we will make mistakes, we will be imperfect in this work. We know we have shared values and commitment. When we have that, it's so much easier to correct, to apologize, to keep learning, to keep going, to take the next risk. And if we don't have the level of humility and candor to do it, then we get to build it because everything else depends on it. We don't get to back away. Things here like the code of conduct and the global hotline, these are all about boundaries and safeties. Employees need to know where the boundaries are and what to do when they're crossed with anonymous options. Training, training, more training. No two worldwide offices have the same diversity or belonging priorities or are at the same level of understanding. So we began this foundational work, but this will likely never be done. And most recently, we created the Diversity Council for goals, for action, for accountability. Now, as we were finalizing that, the results came in and the numbers were incredible. I was so surprised. I asked our consultant to double check them. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen numbers like this before. 92% of our employees across the most vulnerable categories felt that they belonged. And even though these results are very good, there's always more to the story. And we learned some uncomfortable truths that need to be addressed. Performance standards are inconsistent. Surprising, we do calibration, we do all the traditional HR systems and processes to ensure consistency. It's not there. Disconnection and lack of unity, not terribly surprising in a COVID world. Employees want more career development. We knew that from our exit interviews. And some feel their opinions aren't valued and are afraid to voice them. So we get to do better. These are our top priorities for our leadership team, our people strategy team, and our council, each holding the others accountable. Now, step three, see your employees. Like many of you, I love interacting with our employees. I have done listening tours, I read exit interviews, focus groups, I read performance reviews. I get lots of input from employees, complaints, concerns, compliments, recommendations. I thought I had the full view. Again, wholly incomplete and certainly through my eyes. In the development of our diversity council, dozens of employees were interviewed to learn what diversity means to them and why they want to be on the council. And I, once again, was ill prepared for this experience. I was ill prepared to hear their passion, their pain, the stories of marginalization that they experienced both in their personal and professional lives. So all of that on the one hand, and on the other, the love. The love, yes, the love, like the L word, we were talking about love at work, the love for the company. And our employees were passionate and humble. They only wanted best what was best for the company and their colleagues. And nearly every applicant said, whether you choose me or not, I'm just thrilled the company's doing this. So, with all that in mind, we weren't sure how to begin this work in a globally relevant way. I mean, consider the conditions. No two countries are on the same frequency on human rights, social equality, economics, faith, health equity, and our employees each experience diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging through multiple lenses. They've got their own, their community, their company, their country, and the topics they shared were broad and also very, very personal. You know, for some, it was about race, for others, women's rights, for others, LGBTQIA, faith, ability, neurodiversity. And for some, it was a very complex intersectionality of some or all of these. And we learned that the impact of that aloneness when hiding yourself is profound. And that when that exists, you can't possibly belong. So in this case, like belonging is both what you're risking and what you're getting. It's the risk and the reward. And it's a really, really delicate balance. When it's in balance, people engage. When it's out of balance, they leave. You know, thinking back to the four things all humans need: to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to be safe. And when they're not, they give less. And when they are, they give things we didn't know we could have. So consider yourself, everything you've ever been through, everything that's made you who you are. How much of that are you bringing to work? And it's counterintuitive to what we're taught, right? For generations about work, keep it professional. You're a leader now. People will take advantage. Well, what if they don't? And what if that's all wrong? What if the rules are changing? Let's stay really curious about these humans who happen to lend their time and talents and resources to our companies. We're learning things about them and about work that we've never known before. This isn't in the HR books. You know, we're writing those chapters right now. So I suggest that the social contract with workers is changing. We're in the midst of a great transformation, a big one, the biggest shift of my career and yours. I remember when we worried about Y2K, we thought it was the end of work as we knew it. We feared the computers would stop, the lights would go out, there weren't enough digits in the date fields, disaster would strike. And that moment pales in comparison to this one. The Industrial Revolution, that was before my time, really. I'm old, I'm not quite that old, but this is bigger than that, and it's bigger than labor rights movements because it's a shift in power, in priorities, and in options for workers. Some are calling it the Great Resignation. I prefer to think of it as the Great Wake Up Call. 2020 was a seismic shift in our policies, our government, science, our companies. We learned a lot about our capacity and our limits. And globally, we saw and are still seeing social unrest, maskers, anti maskers, vaxxers, anti vaxxers, protests, health equity, and wealth gaps right in front of our faces. No part of the planet is exempt from people begging to be seen. And workers have always changed for companies. Maybe it's time for companies to change for workers. So these events remind us we're all way more connected as a global community than any of us realized. So why should our workplaces be any different? Employees are craving connection and belonging in ways we never imagined. In the workplace, this time, the center stage. They're counting on us, their employers, to see ourselves, to see our companies, to see our employees, to belong so that their work works for them. And if we don't see them, we'll lose them to someone who does. This is a journey, not a destination, clearly. And at Worldwide, we are very early on in ours, but the results, our company performance, customer satisfaction, employee belonging feedback, all tell us that while we have a long way to go, we're on the right path. So in closing, we're each responsible for what we bring to this work and what we choose to see. Following today, I would love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Tell me what you're seeing through your eyes. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so delighted that we're on this journey together, building a new skill set. I see you.
Joy. Listen, fabulous. Really great to hear those insights, and something certainly that struck me to be seen, valued, heard, and to be safe. I mean, those four words, regardless of whatever business we're in, if we have a team, this is what we want to achieve. Everybody wants this in life. Those four things, and it sounds like it's certainly Worldwide are on the right track. Just one question very quickly before we finish up. In your opinion and from your experience, are there any other areas of HR where bias should be reduced or eradicated besides recruitment?
Yes, all of them. All of them.
Mm.
I mean, everything we do is rooted in the system and the belief of the person who wrote it. Every policy, every procedure, our exit interviews, the kinds of questions that we ask, the way we think about the work week, our benefits, pay, the pay gap, benefit, how we ask people to subsidize their contribution to anything we provide for them. We have to look at all of that through a completely different lens, through the eye of the worker.
It's intriguing what you said earlier on about really looking at ourselves and really asking ourselves maybe those uncomfortable questions, because we see things naturally from our own perspective, and that perspective may be biased, and it may be biased for years because we've never actually been told or shown actually somebody else sees the same thing in a completely different way. So hiring a company to come in and literally, spot check absolutely everything to really give you this kind of like perspective from the outsider's point of view is a great way. But I think also companies who take that step already are going in the right direction, because I think still that many companies are maybe not going forward and doing that as much as they perhaps could do perhaps.
Yeah, it's scary. So I understand
Yeah.
why we don't do it. I was terrified to hand all that over, right?
Yeah, and I
Because you
can
don't know what you're
imagine.
going to find. But the reality is, it's there whether we're looking at it or not.
And it's this reflection, isn't it? It's almost like self-reflection and saying, listen, this is what I think of me and the company, but this is, I want to really see what others feel and their perception to make sure the two are the same. Listen,
Yeah.
Joy, it's been great having you with us. Again, if you're intrigued, you'd like to know more, you'd like to contact Joy maybe and continue this conversation further, I'm sure she'll be happy to connect over LinkedIn. From me now, thank you so much for your insights, and naturally, your time. And we'll spend another session one day about all those great objects behind that each have their own story as well.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful
Cheerio.
day.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, we move on swiftly to our next session right now. This is all about scaling culture, and looking at key concepts and tools behind prosperous development and sustainable and flexible high performing teams. We'll do that in just about 30 seconds time.